Up next is Phil Roberts, Amherstburg's Director of Parks, Facilities, Recreation, and Tourism, to outline the plan for the development of Beaudoin Park, which is so important to the River Canard community. Phil will show us concepts for building upon currently approved town funding to offer additional, highly accessible amenities considered as benchmark for recreational spaces. Thanks.
Thank you very much. It is a thrill to be speaking with the other projects here as well, and I've texted my wife to ask if I could use the emergency check in my wallet to make a contribution. She said I could, so I'll definitely be doing that. Beaudoin Park is a park that has been sort of forgotten. It is a community park, 300 homes in the immediate vicinity, and it's one of those parks that really has the potential to be very much a part of the community core, like a lot of parks. Beaudoin Park, unfortunately, had come to the point where a lot of the equipment in the park had deteriorated to the point that it had to be removed. There's a lot of standards in playground equipment now, including not only the type of equipment, but the base that they sit on. So the town of Amherstburg, after the Parks Master Plan was developed, had put Beaudoin as a high priority, and the town had committed $170,000 to basically see some redevelopment in the park. What you see in a lot of parks in Essex County, not just Amherstburg, but Windsor and our surrounding municipalities, is the playground structure, the big device, the big unit that is often themed and is really the showpiece. It's the most expensive part, but we've got parks that's the only unit in the park. So the town essentially, and it's one of those priority pieces, because you want kids to have fun in that recreational space. So that we're going to guarantee in the sense of the redevelopment of this park. And there's a few other things we're going to guarantee with the $170,000 that council has allotted for Beaudoin. But the Parks Department also made a commitment partially on the availability and having access to the Amherstburg Community Foundation. And other groups as well. Rotary is certainly a partner, our own accessibility committee. And we were going to go look for funding sources to make this park more than just the themed playground unit sitting in the middle of the park. We also, in the design criteria, didn't want to duplicate things that were happening at the school. We also wanted to look at something rather novel for parks, as parks really now are becoming more and more focal points for the community. New Canadians, for example, really get the sense of going to a park. And parks are sort of a different dynamics anyway. When you talk about health, parks tend to generate that concept of active living and individual health, kids playing on monkey bars. One of the elements of this park that we realized could be undertaken very inexpensively is to get into sort of non-structured play. Just a spot where you could play soccer, you could throw a frisbee, you could engage your family. But that whole health theme, which is a big part of the theme I know of the Community Foundation, is not just the health of the individual, it's also the health of the family. A family that plays together stays together, which is kind of an antique slogan. But what you'll also find with parks is parks also will increase the health of the community overall. So that term health, we're really looking at this as an element for Beaudoin. And then you have the big device. So these are things that we know we can do and that we want to do fairly quickly. But parks don't always meet the total community goals. And that was one of the things that we wanted to start looking at here. The accessibility and the accessibility not only from physical accessibility but cognitive abilities and those elements. When we engaged our community, we did a public open house. It was absolutely amazing where the kids that came into the open house weren't as interested in the big monster play unit as they were in having a swing a tire swing or saucer swing. And part of it was because that's something that they had recognized from the previous park, as we realized, but also because they can engage their little sister on it with them, or their little brother, or as we found out in that community, people who did have physical challenges as well. So the Dare to Dream part of this came from the fact that it's not just about that unit. It's not about simply what the $170,000 can supply to the park. What we weren't going to be able to do is we weren't going to be able to have a place where Grandma and Grandpa could sit in the shade. We weren't going to have an extended pathway system. We weren't going to have what we're calling the Discovery Play Precinct. And that's really what we wanted to get into. So even though the park divided very nicely up into 3 precincts, non-structured play, buy your kid a Frisbee at Christmas and they're going to play Frisbee golf at Beaudoin Park. It's fairly straightforward. You build a nice big playground unit. But with that, we had to incorporate shade. And then we also wanted to develop some things that would inspire, that would be completely inclusive. Inclusive in the sense that there'd be no differentiation in age, it would be imagination-based, it would be discovery-based. And that's where we started looking at some of these concepts like a dinosaur dig, the fossil find, developing sort of an outdoor classroom that also may have elements where the outdoor classroom, we're hoping with imagination, becomes a fort or becomes another play structure. So it really was about making the park more comfortable, and the enhanced features is exactly that. If the park was comfortable for all ages and for all abilities, cognitively and physically, that we could do much, much more for this community in bringing them together. And I think a lot of people, in the sense of you look at a municipality and you're saying the municipality is asking for funding to develop a park. Certainly the Discovery Play concept is unique to parks. You don't see Discovery Play in parks in Essex County at this point. There are other places to discover. Richard is here in Holiday Beach is coming up, probably one of the most fantastic discovery places in Essex County right here in Amherstburg. But this is a different kind of discovery in the sense that we want to engage all ages and in all walks. And that's, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. That's basically where we are with the Beaudoin Park project.
Thank you, Phil. So if you've been by the park lately, you understand it being prioritized for fresh infrastructure. And again, the goal here is to find additional funding to implement beyond the basics, to provide an optimized space to gather, discover, and play.